Today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, construction on inland waterways, and Coast Guard apathy is leading to the situation where ship can't sail in the United States. Oh, it wasn't supposed to be ship, it was supposed to be... I'm not saying that word. No. Say poop, but I'm not going to say that. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So, as you got from the title, ship can't sail in the United States. And when we say ship, it's not ship, it's poop. Poop can't sail. What do we mean by this? Well, we're going to take a look at a story out by G Captain John Conrad himself, discussing a situation on the Hackensack River where tugboats are unable to make the transit up and down the river, moving vital cargo, including poop. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so to be alerted about new videos as they come out. So here's John's crappy story over at G Captain. Not crappy and bad, we're talking about poop. I mean, there's going to be a lot of poop jokes in this video. I apologize, but just be aware, it's going to be here. Story over in G Captain, Bridge to Disaster, how Coast Guard apathy is sinking a New York tugboat business. The story deals with the construction of the new portal bridge over the Hackensack River in New Jersey. Going to John Conrad's story, on a crisp morning that should have promised smooth sailings, Captain Mike Vinnick found himself staring at a maze of steel and concrete where open water used to be. The familiar currents of the Hackensack River now led straight into a construction site's labyrinth, turning what was once a routine voyage into a high-stakes game of nautical Tetris. Quote, every day it's like threading a needle while the eye keeps shrinking, unquote, Vinnick muttered, his gaze fixed on the colossal structure inching its way across the horizon. Mike Vinnick has navigated these waters for decades, ferrying vital cargo up and down New Jersey's arterial river. But lately, the journey has become a perilous adventure, courtesy of the ambitious and some say reckless $2.3 billion New Jersey Transit and Amtrak Portal Bridge Replacement Project. Now, this is being hosted by a company called Skansa. They're aiming to modernize the railway link between Newark and New York City. According to Vinnick, progress is good, but not when it sinks the very business that keeps the region afloat. So this is the site for the Portal North Bridge that's going to cross over the Hackensack. The question here is whether or not tugs and barges can cross above the North Portal Bridge along the Hackensack River. Head over to marine traffic. Here is the Portal Bridge. Here is I-95 going across it in Hackensack. And as we zoom out here on marine traffic, you can see New York Harbor. Here is the inner New York Harbor. Here's the Verrazano out into the Lower Bay region. Staten Island, and then up here is the ports of Newark and New Jersey, Port Elizabeth, and then as you head up here, up in the Hackensack River and the Passaic River, this is where a lot of inland transportation takes place. Now, you should note that one of the reasons that New York developed as one of the biggest ports in the United States and at different periods of time, the world, was because it not just facilitated transportation from overseas, but it was a vast network that allowed you to reach up into other areas. You can go up the Hudson River or the North River, up into the central part of New York. You can use the Hackensack, the Passaic, the Raritan River to hit into northern New Jersey region. You had Staten Island, you had Manhattan as an island, you had the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, and then access out into Long Island Sound. It was a vast treasure trove of a network of waterways before you constructed roads and highways and trains and bridges. This is the way you move cargo. The problem you have right now is there's a lot of construction that is happening on the waterways of the United States, and we have a very confused system of control over the waterways in the United States. Waterways are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Coast Guard, or federal entities oversee them. However, in the case of what's happening in New Jersey, this is being controlled by the New Jersey Port Authority and the New Jersey Department of Transportation. As you zoom in here and look, you'll see there's not a lot of transport. There's nothing north of the Portal Bridge right now moving. And one of the big issues we keep hearing all the time is criticism of inland transportation in the United States. There are those who oppose the Jones Act, which is the requirement for U.S.-owned, U.S. flag, U.S. built and U.S. crewed vessels to move cargo in the inland waterways. And a lot of people criticize that law because they say it's too expensive, it creates an undue burden, and it shifts cargo onto roads and rail off the waterways, which is the cheapest way to move goods. But here's a case where it is the construction of the Portal Bridge that is impacting that. And let's look at exactly what they're saying. The statement in the report talks about how a river runs through bureaucracy, and it talks about the fact that the troubles began long before the first pile was driven into the riverbed. The project had undergone all the requisite environmental navigation assessments. However, unofficially, it seemed as if the planners had forgotten that the Hackensack River wasn't just a blue line on a map, and this is really key. So key stakeholders like Vinnick Marine Services, SpectraServe, and even local sewage authorities were left in the dark, discovering critical updates only when construction cranes appeared on the horizon. One of the things that this has done is that the movement of sewage, this is where poop comes into the story, had been done by barges. The barges would be loaded up. This is a terrible job. Obviously, nobody wants this job. But you would load up the barges with sewage and move it down. Bulk shipment by water is one of the best things to do. What's happening now is instead of that sewage going on a barge and being shipped down the river, they're being loaded into trucks, and trucks are running down the highways loaded with you know what, and it is taking multiple trucks to equate to a barge. You're talking about a barge can equate to several hundred, if not 1,000 trucks in terms of the volume to spend depending on the size of the barge. And because of this construction, we're shifting this off. And we're seeing this in a lot of places, not just on the Hackensack River. Story goes on, this is not a local problem, it's national. Congressman Brian Mast has been a vocal critic of the Coast Guard's handling of bridge operations in Florida, particularly in relation to the St. Lucie River Railway Bridge. The primary issue revolves around the increased closure of this bridge due to the expansion of Brightline, a high-speed rail service. These closures have severely restricted boaters' access, particularly allowing as little as 90 minutes of passage in a 15-hour period. In several hearings, Mass has accused the Coast Guard of being complicit in prioritizing rail traffic over maritime access, which he argues jeopardizes not only commercial and recreational boating, but also emergency response operations. Congressman Mass actually had this hearing before the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Linda Fagan, where he brought this up and did not get a good answer back from the Admiral. So the issue you're seeing around the country is this is a big issue in terms of development over waterways where there is lack of coordination with those who are using the waterways. Getting back to the story in New Jersey. The heart of the issue lies in the shrinking navigable channel between the existing Portal Bridge. Originally offering a horizontal clearance of 91.5 feet, the channel is now constricted by massive barges and equipment that have no business being there, or so argue the maritime companies affected. Legal representatives from Blank Rome, acting on behalf of Vinnick Marine and others, have fired off a series of letters to the U.S. Coast Guard, citing violations of the Rivers and Harbor Act. The law is clear. Obstructing a federal navigable channel is a criminal activity. Yet despite the mounting evidence and growing concerns, the Coast Guard's response has been tepid at best. Quipped one captain who wished to remain anonymous, quote, "It's like reporting a fire and being told that the department will look into it after lunch. By then, everything has already gone up in flames." According to a New York tugboat crew member, quote, "They have weaponized the shoulder shrug." The obstruction isn't just a matter of legal hair splitting. It's a tangible danger. Barges carrying tons of cargo now have to navigate perilously close to construction equipment, increasing the risk of collisions and environmental disasters. The situation is further exasperated by confusing and contradictory notices to mariners, leaving captains to make split-second decisions in increasingly hazardous conditions. It goes on here and talks about the domino effect of essential services. Services like waste management are caught in the crossfire. SpectraServe, which relies on the river to transport waste materials efficiently, now face delays and increased operational costs. The Bergen County Utilities Authority and the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission both depend on timely waste removal, are feeling the ripple effects. Going to be clear, you don't want to feel the ripple effects of waste removal. That is a horrible experience. Quote, "When waste doesn't move, everything backs up literally and figuratively." Okay, I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face in this story, just to be clear. Said one waste management professional, quote, "We're talking about public health concerns piling up because someone didn't plan properly." All right, this is a shitty story in many levels. But it goes to a root issue here where infrastructure dealing with the U.S. waterways is not properly being planned, coordinated with those who use it. I live in a very rural part of North Carolina, and I just had a road closure on my road, but signs went up a few days ahead of time. There were notices sent out, and I was well prepared to know that this obstruction was coming. It sounds like in this case on the Hackensack River that the barge operators and all the shipping concerns there are not getting the information they need. And this is causing, obviously, problems. And again, this is an issue that impacts. Why would you start shipping things by water if you're going to have such problems? This is moving cargo off the water onto the land. And every time everybody screams is like, we need to be more efficient, we need to improve our shipping, these are issues that come to bear. And again, this is a massive national problem. And one of the things we have to do is fix this. The article goes on to say, as the Portal Bridge replacement project trudges on, the question remains at what cost? Modernizing infrastructure is undoubtedly essential, but so is preserving the economic ecosystems that have thrived along these waterways for decades. Critics suggest even with the river problems, the Portal North Bridge project is expected to create approximately 15,000 jobs and add billions to the local economy. The solution isn't to halt progress, but to ensure it's inclusive and considerate of all affected parties. This means immediate actions from the U.S. Coast Guard to enforce existing laws, transparent communication from construction firms, and a seat at the table for maritime stakeholders who have been sidelined for too long. John Conrad continues, as the sun sets over the troubled waters of the Hackensack River, captains like Vinnick and Grabois can only hope that their voices will finally carry beyond the steel and concrete walls rising above them. Quote, bridges are supposed to connect, Vinnick mused, gazing at the construction silhouetted against the evening sky. Right now, this one is dividing us more than ever. What's happening on the Hackensack River, what's happening down on the St. Lucia River is happening across the United States. We're looking at this. We're getting ready to see a massive bridge program go up in Baltimore. We've seen projects that have impacted the ability to ship cargo in and around the United States. You know, we keep advocating for more use of the inland waterways. Well, that means the Coast Guard has to be the advocate for those who are shipping cargo along with the U.S. Maritime Administration. We need to ensure that there are seats at the table for those who are using the inland waterways and the international waterways of the United States. Absolutely essential. If not, you're going to see the situation that we have right now in New Jersey. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sorry for it being a little crude, but you know, sometimes you got to make a little levity of these stories. If you enjoyed today's story, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until our next episode, which I hope is a better topic than this one. Sal, signing off.